Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at the 5 different types of sampling techniques. So in class today we covered a few of these. There's a couple that are going to be in this big idea that we really didn't talk about, but they are important to know. So let's start off with the first one, and that is convenience sampling. A convenience sample is a sample of people that are easy to reach without any type of randomization. So what you're going to find is that on these other 4 that I reveal in just a few minutes, there is some type of randomization that is involved. But for convenience sampling, there's no randomization at all. An example of a convenience sample might be something like an online survey, or if you just happen to be in a room and you quickly survey everyone in that room, they are easy to reach. There's no randomization. That would be considered a convenience sample. The second sampling technique that we want to take a look at is called simple random sampling. And with simple random sampling, another name for that is SRS. You see that sometimes. So if you see SRS, that means simple random sampling. Now, there are some other sampling techniques that also use these initials or have these initials. But whenever you see SRS, that means simple random sampling and nothing else. So in a simple random sample, what you're doing is you're choosing a group from the population, and every individual in that population and every possible group of individuals that you could put together has an equal chance of being chosen. This would be like numbering everyone in a student population and then randomly choosing 20 numbers, and then the numbers that are associated with those 20 students become your simple random sample. So the steps for this are: label all of the individuals in the population. Most of the time we label them with a number. Then we randomize by using some kind of random number generator, or we randomize in some other way. And then once we randomly select the numbers, because we have labeled them, we select those particular numbers as our sample. So putting all the names in a hat and drawing out names from a hat, that would be a simple random sample. Numbering everyone in a classroom and then randomly choosing 5 numbers and surveying those 5 people that are labeled with those 5 numbers. That's a simple random sample. All right, let's take a look at our third sampling technique, and that is stratified sampling. Sometimes this is called stratified random sampling. So that would also have the initials of SRS, but remember, don't use SRS for anything other than simple random sampling. It's totally fine to use this abbreviation, but it's only for simple random sampling, not for stratified. If you want to say stratified, then write out stratified. But anyways, what is stratified sampling? Well, that's when we group our population by some kind of characteristic or some kind of variable. And then we choose a simple random sample from each one of those groups. So let's say we create groups based on your grade level. So freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And then we randomly choose, an SRS, a simple random sample of 10 freshmen, a random sample of 10 sophomores, 10 juniors, and 10 seniors. So we are getting 10 from every group randomly. That would be stratified sampling. So in stratified sampling, you group by some kind of characteristic or some kind of variable, and then you choose a random sample from each group. By the way, each group is called a stratum. And if you have more than one stratum, which usually you do, they are called strata, STRATA, strata. So stratified sampling. Let's take a look at the next one, which is cluster sampling. Now, cluster sampling and stratified sampling, sometimes students get confused by those two because both of them include grouping your population. But in cluster sampling, we split the population into groups based on location, And then we randomly select one or more of those clusters and we sample everyone in those clusters. Okay, so with stratified sampling, you're randomly choosing a few from every single group. But with cluster sampling, you are randomly choosing one cluster or maybe a few clusters, and everyone inside of those clusters becomes your sample. So there's a big difference between those two. The only similarity is that you are grouping the population. But with cluster sampling, you're grouping by location. You randomly select one or more clusters, and then everyone inside of those clusters becomes your sample. The last type of sampling technique that we're going to take a look at is called systematic sampling. And systematic sampling is when you randomly choose a place to start, and then you sample every nth person after that. Now you may say, what do you mean by nth person? It would be like, a good example would be police officers have a speed trap set up, or maybe they want to do some drug testing, or they want to stop cars to see if they're carrying drugs. So what they end up doing is they randomly choose a place to start, and then they may do a traffic stop on every 5th car that passes by, or every 20th car that passes by, or every 30th car that passes by. That would be systematic sampling. Another example of this is in manufacturing, possibly, let's say that people are making a particular product and this company wants to do some quality control. So they choose a random place to start on their assembly line, and then they choose every 100th item on the assembly line and they test it for quality control. So 100 of their widgets go by and they choose one off the line, and then another 100 go by and they choose another one, and another 100 go by and they choose another one. So this is called systematic sampling. So you randomly choose a place to start and you sample every nth individual after that. So these are our 5 types of sampling techniques. You need to be able to describe each one of these, and you also need to be able to identify each one of these if you are given an example. So knowing the difference between each one of them is very, very important. Hopefully this helps, and hopefully you have a great day.